It's a beautiful Sunday afternoon, and I trust you're having a great day. Hello and welcome to Rubbin Minds. My name is Hero Daniels. So much is happening in Nigeria right now that we cannot even keep up with the news. I mean, 1 minute is the issue of Ruga. The next minute, a senator of the Federal Republic goes shopping in an adult store and ends up assaulting a woman. How sad. But of course, we have good news. Yes, the Super Eagles are in the quarterfinals of the African Cup of Nations, beating Cameroon 3-2 to set up a quarterfinal clash with South Africa. We wish them the very best. Moving on to the main discourse for today, it is that of rape culture, victim blaming, and the search for justice. Now, for the past 3 weeks, you would agree with me that the issue of rape has actually been at the top of our national conversations. And to give a little bit of backdrop to this story, we would like to look into the alleged rape case of celebrity photographer Busola Dakolo by Pastor Biodun Fatoyinbo. And of course, the very heartbreaking story of a 4-year-old girl, Chloe, who was also allegedly raped by their cook. Now, both cases have witnessed massive protests all over the country. And to discuss this topic in details, I have the executive director, Enough is Enough, Yemi Adamolekun. So nice to have you on the show. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So let's get straight into it. When we talk about rape, rape is when you have carnal knowledge of a sex, be it male or female, without consent. Now, the key word here is consent. Yeah. And a lot of people find it hard to really understand the implications and what consent means in its entirety. So for the purpose of the viewers, can you quickly explain to us what consent means?
Consent just means that I'm a willing participant at the surface. But a deeper level, and that's part of the challenge of the conversation we're having now, is if you get consent under the guise of a different type of power dynamic. So if we're colleagues, for example, and we're friends, then consent is pretty much a bit more straightforward. But consent when it has to do with someone who's a religious leader, so maybe a pastor, someone who's your boss at work, someone who's a senior colleague at work, the dynamics are slightly different. That consent is not a simple matter of yes or no. As a friend of mine puts it, when it becomes someone who has the ability to shape your life, to determine if, in a sense, very literally, if you live or die, then consent takes on a whole new meaning. It's not a simple question of, oh, yes or no anymore. It's if through coercion or manipulation or intimidation, you do say, really, you say yes, but was it a yes you would have said under different circumstances? And that's where sometimes there's a gray line where people said, well, but they said yes. And we're asking about what was the conditions that you said yes to.
Exactly.
Or were you in such a state that you actually didn't say no, but you were not a willing participant. I mean, you're in a place where you're like literally looking at the person going, this is not happening to me. Yes. But you find yourself paralyzed. So you haven't said no, you haven't said yes, but you're frozen. And then the person still decides to have sex with you. Would that be consent? In our world, we'll say no, exactly.
Not at all. Now, looking at consent culturally, even according to the laws of the country, which hasn't been changed, when a man and a woman is married, there is no such case of rape according to the law. Yeah. So I don't know, what do you have to say about that in such a situation whereby a man is married to a woman, they are legally married, and the woman is not in the mood to have sex. Yeah. So at that point, how would you place consent in such?
But it's still the same thing, because a woman is entitled to her body.
Of course.
So the fact that, yes, we are married, and I mean, if you're Christian, the Bible does talk about your body being your husband's and all of that, but it's not for your husband to take by force, if I want to use that phrase. So it is a challenge, and it then feeds part of it into this our culture of silence. Because if people can't first of all, you're dealing with people conceptualizing consent outside of marriage. Then, as you said, now consent within marriage, people are like, how far? But also understand that culturally, there's some things that make it also very challenging. So there's a culture in Nigeria, and I forget what particular ethnic group, that if you have your friend comes to visit you, your wife, you can give your wife to him as a companion for the night, and it's not an issue. Now imagine in that culture what rape would mean, what consent would mean, what abuse would mean. It'll be very warped. Because if you then have someone who's from there and you're having a conversation around rape and consent, their whole sense of it will be completely different. Which is why a lot more education and a lot more speaking about these things so women understand the rights that they have to their bodies, and men also understand the rights that they do not have to women's bodies.
Fantastic. The issue of rape is something that is dated as far back as humanity. It's a crime that is constantly being committed, and of course I will call it a crime because that is what it is. But recently we've been seeing the resurgence of more stories. Of course, we know that these stories have always been there, but why do you think we're having more cases making it out to the social media and of course the mainstream media?
Just quickly on your point about rape being a crime, it's also part of it within the context of marital rape. Because it is a crime, it also explains why you don't get it as reported. Because very few women want to see their husbands go to jail. Even if they are able to make a case and get a lawyer that can show whatever evidence the law requires. Let's even say there's a conviction. That means your husband is going to jail, clearly. So that would explain also part of why the culture of silence. But I think to your question about why now, it's really all, quite frankly, I mean, it's a Sunday, so it's really a matter of times and seasons. I think globally, the Me Too movement, everybody being convicted from Bill Cosby to Harvey Weinstein. And actually, let's take it back a decade, Bill Cosby. Not Bill Cosby, Bill Clinton. So if we continue to move around sexual abuse, around abuse of power, which in a sense, it's part of the challenge in a particular context. And you have people like Bill Cosby and Harvey Weinstein, abuse of power. And in the last 2 years, so many stories coming out from that space. So you have entertainment space. Even in Nigeria, we've talked about it a lot around women who say for certain roles, they have to have sex. Exactly. So you have entertainment. Then you have politics as well. You have women who are running for office who say they have been, pressure has been put on them, or they've had to do it for whatever it is that they're trying to get at. And now just in the church, in this particular case. But so it's really, quite frankly, a sequence of events. And then more people are finding their voice. More organizations are working. Lagos, for example, is a great case study of a state that has taken it very seriously. Now you have a court set aside specifically for sexual abuse. Lagos State has 2 shelters. Lagos State has a hotline for domestic violence. So in their laws as well, I mean, for example, Lagos, a number of years ago, a minor, that even if the minor does not want to prosecute, or the parents, because somebody has gone to beg them, or it's their community, or it's a family member, for the simple fact that you're a minor, Lagos State will prosecute. So all the minor, as long as you're under 18, all you need to do is get away for Lagos State, the Department of, I think it's called Domestic, DSRTV. As long as they know, Lagos State will take on the case and prosecute on your behalf. So when you begin to have laws that makes it okay to speak, and when you do speak, you get support, more people will begin to speak out.
True. We're also going to get back to the law because I know that when it comes to marital rape, because that's an aspect a lot of people are not looking at. When it comes to marital rape, there is no law that convicts the perpetrator.
Unless it's rape. Unless you prosecute it just under... So it's not marital rape. Just keep it as a law that's rape.
Rape. That's what I'm saying, that if you check the laws, there's no provision for that. They said once you're married, there's nothing like rape in the law. But we'll get back to that. Let's talk about stigmatization. Let's take it from the angle of people who do not believe when people come out to say, oh, I have been raped. So I'm trying to understand what is the psychology behind such attitudes. Why do people find it so hard to believe?
I think a couple of things. One very interesting one is when you look at women when they say, what were you wearing? Now, in your intro, you talked about a 4-year-old that was raped. So I'm sorry, what exactly would a 4-year-old be wearing that would make her say, I want to be raped? If we say it's what women wear, that's one. Secondly, you have comments like, what were you doing there? As if the person took themselves from wherever they were, went to that venue for the sole purpose of getting violated. And I think also the mind just has a hard time sometimes processing things that they can't imagine happening. So in a way, there's a lot of denial. I mean, I talk about it with Bring Back Our Girls. There are people who are in such denial that those number of girls could be taken that they just don't believe that it happened. And then you have that, because also we don't see as many convictions and as many stories, that's not what you see in the limelight. And also, add to that, so very many reasons, add to that, men are raised for the most part with the culture of entitlement.
True.
So there's a sense that, no be babe. There's just a sense that it's not a big deal. And some of my friends were talking about that. There's almost an expectation for women to say no. So it's like a tease.
That's what they call the rape myth. The rape myth.
Yeah,
that
so you are
no
really
means
saying
yes.
yes, exactly. So you're saying no, but you really mean yes, and you want the guy to beg, or you want the guy to be a bit aggressive. I mean, some of my friends were joking about it, and when they say it, they'll be like, you're not sharp. But so if those things are things we consider normal, then when someone comes out and says she was in a guy's house, she said no, and the guy raped her, because they know is meant to be in their minds is a tease. You said no, but you actually really meant yes. So the guy having sex with you wasn't really rape. So it's a lot, and as much as the layers have been in our minds, then we need to be deliberate about work to unpack all those myths and get to the reality. No means no. And if you as a woman, you want to be doing tease, the day you say no and the guy leaves you, if you wanted sex, you should have said yes. But if you say no and he leaves you, you're on your own.
These are very important myths that needs to be addressed. Yeah. So no means no. Still talking about stigmatization, I believe that all of these points you just enumerated sort of fuels the culture of silence. Yeah. Now let's talk about the effects on the woman. The psychological effects, the emotional trauma. Can you give us a little bit of an insight? Because I'm sure that you have dealt with a lot of victims that have been raped. Can you tell us a little bit of the effect it has on them?
I actually haven't. I mean, I've heard stories, and my involvement in Busola's case has sort of exposed me to a lot more stories. But from what I have read and a bit of what I've heard, it's something, I mean, so for those who get raped at really young ages, the way the brain, as I understand, works, it sort of compartmentalize. Thank you, that word.
It's fine.
Your memories. So sometimes it's so locked up, they themselves don't remember. Until maybe something happens further down that sort of triggers a memory of that. And then for others, it's suppressed. It's at the surface, but it's suppressed. I mean, rather, it's theirs, but it's suppressed, so they don't deal with it. And also, we're not very good with seeing psychologists or counselors. So the whole culture of actually going to someone and having someone help you work through your pain and work through that sort of trauma in your life, we don't do it as much. So you have a lot of women who just carry it around. Affects their relationships with men. Some are unable to get married. Some have said it's basically caused them to become quite promiscuous. Because like somebody has taken it, what am I protecting anyway? So let's get on. So very different types of after effects. But a big part of it is just what it does to your sense of who you are. As something has been forcefully taken away from you, then what does that mean about who I am? So, and then a lot of self-doubt. Should I have, and especially this whole sort of the response to it, should I not have gone? Was it what I'm wearing? Did I do it? Did I not? Did I? So there's a lot of self-blame. So the person who has raped you has done it and moved on. But you are left with the consequences of it. And then the most extreme of it, people who then get pregnant. And for whatever reason, either found out too late, or their religion doesn't allow them to have an abortion. So they have that child. Then what happens? Then what are the dynamics? Or worse case, if it's a family member. Girls that are raped by their fathers, by their uncles, by a cousin. And these are people that, if it's a family member, I still have to see you. It's not, you're not so far away.
True. You made mention of culture. And you hear stories about family members protecting rape victims, telling them, oh, do not speak out, and try to protect the family's image in courts and all of that. We'll get into that. But before that, let's go straight to the law. We'll get to that. The search for justice has been very, the journey has been very, very minimalistic, if I would say. Less than 20 people have been convicted, has ever been convicted in the history of our legal system of rape. So how do these victims, how would they really get justice? Especially when most of them don't have evidences as at when the act happened.
Part of it, I mean, to your point about why we're talking about it more, I think Mirabel Center is probably about 3-4 years old. And Mirabel Center, for example, gives out rape kits. So it's now a bit easier, if I want to use the word, for for survivors to be able to collect evidence. There's a lot more education around if you do get raped, this is what you do. Step 1, step 2, step 3. So as we start educating women more and women take ownership of their bodies and are able to, now if I keep the evidence and I decide I don't want to use it for whatever reason, but at least that's my choice at that point in time.
True.
As opposed to me not knowing what to do. I've just gotten raped. If you use Busola's story, you take a shower 10 times. So all your evidence is gone. But now there's a lot more education around what it is that can be done.
Okay.
And I think also that's, I mean, so if you sort of build up to what you're saying about conviction, culture of, so rape myth, culture of silence, then a legal system that makes the bar very high for evidence for you to prove rape. And at the heart of it, the victim is saying, do I really want to go through this stress?
Taking that, just buttressing on this particular point, I would want you to sort of, use a case study, like you've actively been involved with the Busola Dakolo story. So what is Enough is Enough Nigeria doing about Busola's case in respect to what you're just saying?
So Timmy is RSVP ambassador for EIE Nigeria. So, I mean, we work on governance issues. A lot of people know him for his song, Great Nation. And he has a heart for Nigeria and believing what Nigeria can be. And that's the relationship that has brought Timmy into EIE's world over the years. And when this story was going to come out, we offered to help. And Busola said she wanted to sort of have a movement that encourages women to tell her story. She's kept this story for so long. Finally decided she was ready with Timmy's support, that she wanted to tell her story. But not only tell her story, help and encourage other women to tell their stories. That in the telling of the stories, you find healing. You find, as I say, you begin your process to justice. Busola has filed a petition with the police. Some women have said, I mean, we have the portal Not in My Church, which is what the umbrella movement is called, has a portal that's encouraging women to tell their stories. And part of the questionnaire says, what do you want? Okay. Some say nothing. Some say justice. Some say counseling. And that was Busola's desire that, look, I've done counseling. I've decided to go through the legal route as well. But some might not want to. Some might just want an opportunity to just tell the story. And once we've said it, there's sort of a burden, a sense of relief. And others have said that. We've gotten reports of people saying just listening to Busola allowed them to tell their story and feel relief as well. So
apart from the portal, is your organization also actively involved in the legal case?
No, we're not. But we're supporting the back end of Not in My Church and sort of the platform and helping curate stories and others who are running. But she has a lawyer, so a legal team is supporting her in that drive.
Okay, fantastic. So back to education. How do we sensitize the public? How do we make more women come out? And of course, a lot of people just look at rape as a one-sided affair. Men also get raped.
Indeed, very true.
Men also get raped. So how do we push the sensitization?
Even for men, it'll be much harder. Just because of the sort of the psyche and the macho-ness that comes with being a guy and coming forward. But I think because women are the sort of larger percentage, there's a lot of focus on women and their issues. How do you get more women to come out? Honestly, it's providing a space that makes it okay. The more women see that when I come out, it won't be, what were you doing there? What were you wearing? Why did it take you 17 years to tell your story? You can't legislate for me when I'm comfortable enough to tell my story. So the less we have attacks on women and blaming and, as they say, slut-shaming women, the easier it will be for people to come and tell their stories. And lastly, the more convictions we see, the easier it will be as well.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure having you on the show. I will definitely have you next time so we can elaborately talk on the topic.
All right.